Hello and welcome to the Rested podcast. My name's Mark Selby. I love the theatre of travel, discovering the stories of journeys and learning how people use their travel time. If Mary was offered a second helping of pudding, she'd normally smile and say, "Thank you, but I've had ample sufficiency." The phrase was polite, clear, and from a previous age. Mary was my mother-in-law. She lived to over 100, no doubt helped by her disciplined moderation. But Mary and husband Chris weren't constrained by prudence. They were adventurous. They enjoyed planning and embarking on trips around the British Isles and beyond. In 1973, they went to stay with friends on the Greek island of Skopelos. They were joined by some of their children. Penny and her boyfriend hitchhiked from England. Liz finished her term at boarding school and flew to Athens before taking the ferry to Skopelos. They all fell for the simple, unspoilt island and its pace of life. The idea of buying a holiday home there took root. They found an affordable house for sale in the old town that could accommodate the family. The purchase was unusual, but the island's charm, the strength of the pound, and the features of the house convinced them it was a good decision. The transaction was quite unlike buying a house in England. Communications between the parties relied in part on passing a small Greek and English dictionary to and fro, and enormous trust was shown on the last day of the holiday. Chris had to sign blank sheets of paper that the lawyer said would later be drawn up as the contract of sale, around his signature. Payment was arranged with Chris and Mary's bank, then handshakes and toasts sealed the adventurous purchase. Chris and Mary took the ferry back to the mainland and their onward journey home. There are several options for travelling between Greece and England. Flying might seem the most convenient and fastest, but Liz arrived at Athens airport from that holiday immediately after a grenade and gunfire attack in the passenger lounge. Thankfully, Liz wasn't injured, but other passengers boarded her flight in blood-stained clothes. It was terrifying. Convenience shouldn't be the only consideration when planning our travels. A letter with the authorised contract of purchase, neatly arranged around Chris's signature, duly arrived in the post. With ownership confirmed, Chris and Mary planned their drive back to Greece the following spring. They towed and slept in a small camper trailer. On the journey, they woke to ice on the guy ropes in the mornings. They bought furniture, bedding and essentials in Athens markets and had them shipped to the house in Skopelos. Then took the ferry to the island themselves. Days later, the sound of donkey hooves on the narrow, steep, cobbled streets announced the arrival of their goods. Human and donkey power were the only ways of transporting them, as cars or vans could get nowhere near the house. The narrow streets of old European towns tell many stories. Places built for people, not cars. Only where space allowed did horse-drawn or motorised vehicles help move people and goods. The space was used to serve the needs of the townspeople, rather than occasional visitors or those simply passing through, en route to somewhere else. Many old European towns seem to have been built with a sense of ample sufficiency, meeting the needs of residents and providing access to communal areas, education, trade, and relaxation. There might be areas or objects celebrating a town's history, but beyond parks for relaxation and exercise, the unnecessary waste of space rarely resulted in greater satisfaction. The exceptions were possibly individuals who wanted to stamp an often deluded sense of self-importance upon a place with a statue or building bearing their name. Chris and Mary's adventures continued. In the 1990s, they would visit Liz and I in Switzerland, driving on the quieter departmental roads across France rather than on the motorways. Armed only with a few paper maps, they drove through the countryside and small towns, savouring the journey and stopping at places of interest. This was purposeful, slow travel, not a race against the clock. They'd stop for picnics and catch the views with a camera or sketchbook. This isn't just nostalgia for a bygone age. As listener Thomas in Sweden says, it's wonderful to enjoy analogue rather than digital travel today, appreciating the sights, sounds and smells around us, celebrating the moment and the joy of being alive, taking time to think. And slow travel isn't just for the time rich. We can appreciate the world around us on a short walk or journey just as easily as trekking great distances. And in these troubled times, having a calm appreciation of our environment helps. We've had ample sufficiency of conflict, inhumanity and intolerance. The surrounding elements and people can be uplifting if we acknowledge them, making new friends and hearing memorable stories. This week I was talking to John in London. We discussed books we'd enjoyed reading to our children. He reeled off some excellent titles and told me how he'd been reading to his young grandson recently. Listening to the story and looking carefully at the book's illustrations, the boy suddenly farted. They continued reading, but the farting continued too. "Do you want to go to the toilet?" asked John. "No," replied the boy. The farting continued. "Will you stop it, please, or I'll stop reading," said John. The boy looked up and innocently replied, "It's my new hobby." So many funny, sad, and surprising stories are just waiting to be heard. Finding and sharing them is quite easy. Ignore them, and potential gems just pass us by. We're often consumed with our arrival time at a journey's destination, on schedule. Unexpected delays might cause stress and frustration, but other than donning a brightly coloured costume with underwear on the outside and applying superhuman strength to leaping over obstacles, there's little we can do. It's just life. Imagine sitting in a theatre watching a movie. In life, we know we won't see the end of the film, and how the lives of younger generations will unfold. We'll be leaving the theatre before the movie ends. We can despair at our untimely exit, or devote our undivided attention to the movie before us, savouring each moment. That keen attention to people, places, and objects will uncover surprises. Being a country doctor and artist, Chris was a keen observer of people and his surroundings. Diagnosing and treating his patients successfully when access to laboratories for tests was very limited required that focused observation. He kept himself informed with trusted medical journals and calls with the consultants. Chris would manage the surgery each weekday morning, then undertake his afternoon rounds, visiting the sick and regularly calling in on the elderly, before a short evening surgery. Patients didn't make surgery appointments. It was a case of first come, first served. Chris remained on call 24/7 and would drive to urgent cases, perhaps a midwife requiring help with a difficult birth or a serious accident. This workload in the countryside required a reliable car, so he changed cars every 3 years. Reliability, internal space, and price were the key factors in choosing a car to purchase. Today, the important features for buyers are not dissimilar. But one feature of new cars, loudly promoted then and now, is the car's maximum speed. Now, the maximum speed limit in the UK is 70 miles an hour, and the average speed of all traffic on the UK's road network is only 51 miles an hour. How much more speed does a driver need? The top speed of a basic Range Rover today is 140 miles an hour. This seems absurd. It might be argued the 140 miles an hour is for export markets outside the UK. But only 2 countries in the world have legal speed limits over 88 miles an hour, and even then it's restricted to specific roads. That Range Rover also weighs over 2,700 kilos. What it must waste in fuel or energy. As Mary and her generation knew, recognising that point of ample sufficiency is a great way to reduce waste, be it puddings, space or energy. Let's savour this moment and just consume what we need. Enjoy your travels. Thanks for listening to the Rested podcast. Please subscribe for details of new episodes and tell your friends. I look forward to reading and sharing your travel stories. Please email restedpodcast@gmail.com. And my thanks to everyone that has contributed to Rested so far. Enjoy your travel time.